Last time on A Night and Its Moon, Knox had sex with the red-headed girl, I guess. The mistress had some kind of scheme for gaining political power using Knox, apparently. Knox decided she's going to leave and go look for Amaris. Amaris searched and searched, trying to find the winged hot boys again. Amaris immediately damseled herself very impressively and was saved by the hot winged boys. All her hot boys met, and they didn't like each other at all. This made Amaris unnecessarily angry. Amaris used her power on her friends and explained nothing. And then Amaris's two Reaver buddies randomly ran into Knox, and Piper made me picture a wolf biting one of them on the peen. For this, I will be suing Piper CJ for psychological damage.
It's actually been over a day since the last time we had COVID and read A Night and Its Moon, but we're back for more. Yesterday I mostly just did a shit ton of video editing. I'm trying to get a backlog of edited videos because I have even more events coming up provided I test negative in time to go to them. Nigel is here. You can't really see him, but he's hanging out. There's so much frickin' book here. Chapter 17 is, another 30-pager by the look of it. What is this with this author? And like, there will be, I betcha, in this chapter, there's going to be a perfectly good spot to put a chapter break, and she won't do it. Also, I apologize for my voice, but there's literally nothing I can do about it, so I'm just going to have to deal with that. Oh, Amaris. What is it with me and hating all of these, like, these female main characters? There's like a certain type of indie author, it feels like, who has a certain type of main character who is very pretty, very powerful, and just hateable. Just hateable. Because I felt the same way about Layla, and I feel this way about Amaris. The first line makes me want to slap her in her stupid face. Amaris didn't know how to feel, save for confusion, anger, and that she was certainly not to blame for the horrible way that everything had gone. Now, I think with many authors, I would be like, well, obviously Amaris would think that about herself, but she's wrong, and she's going to have to grow and learn that she has made bad choices and hurt people. But similarly to Layla, I have a very strong feeling that that is not the lesson. That we are supposed to understand that our main lead girl is just the best, and anything she does is unquestionably the way that the story should go. She will always make the right choice, and anything bad that happens isn't her fault, you guys. Just like poor Layla was forced to be a murderous, heinous bitch with not a shred of remorse in her body. We're missing a word right away. Says she lived her Reavers for years. It's supposed to be she lived with, I'm pretty sure.
So this is as good a place as any to mention that a publisher, an actual publisher, Bloom Books, picked up A Night and Its Moon literally after I had started reading it, after I'd been reading it for a little while in September of this year. And from what I understand, I obviously now I have an outdated copy, and I'm going to assume that any of the spelling errors that I point out from now on have been fixed. However, from another reviewer, who I will link below because you should definitely check out her channel, it's amazing. From what I hear from her, she bravely read the new version, and a lot of the things that we had issues with are not fixed. In fact, from my understanding, more things were added, like this book needed more words somehow. Now granted, there was one time when I said she should have added a scene, but other than that, I cannot think how this book needed more. Certainly changes, certainly adjustments, but not more. It does seem, however, that good old Piper CJ has at least replaced some of the references to characters' skin or hair color and then their gender. Just like, you know, the ginger girl, the raven girl, the snowflake girl. Apparently some of that is gone. So I guess thank goodness for small favors. However, I will continue to be subjected to this version where I have no such luck. Also, anyone who's tempted to feel sorry for Piper CJ because any of us are giving her mean reviews, she's doing fine. This book is doing quite well. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's like getting all kinds of like, oh, top pick for fantasy, blah, blah, blah. This review and others like it do not harm her or her bank account in the least.
Oh yeah, one of these flappy guys held a knife to her throat. I can't remember which one of them, I can't tell them apart. They're just more sexy lamps, but with wings. I remember that holding a knife to someone's throat is supposed to be, like, hot in all of these fantasy stories, so that was probably supposed to be sexy, and it just whoosh right over my head. It never fails that my hair looks dorky no matter what. Like, you'd think there would be a day where my hair could look not dorky, but that never happens. Okay, the general of these two identical hot flappy boys is called Gadriel, and I vaguely remember that name, so I think he is going to be another, like, main love interest in this sort of love triangle reverse harem situation with this character. I'm just going to read you these sentences. The southern kingdoms had taken to calling his breed of fae dark fae long ago. If you recall, he is sort of ambiguously dark-skinned as well, so that's not a great look. Now, you know me. I'm not going to say, hey, Piper, stop writing characters of color. I'm going to say, hey, Piper, why don't you learn, take on board criticism, try and get better at writing characters of color. That's what I think people should do. None of this, well, you're bad at it, so you shouldn't write it. Instead, learn, grow, talk to people of color, get better at it. People who don't want diversity in their books often make that argument. Well, if it can't be good, then it shouldn't be there at all. And I'm like, or we should just make more effort to make it good. We should hold people to a higher standard instead of just dismissing it and saying, well, might as well just have no diversity then. Whenever I start these chapters, I always seem to go off on a ramble, mostly because I don't want to read these chapters. It's like a self-defense mechanism. They're called Dark Fae, mostly to call attention to powers that were more familiar with nightlife. What does that mean? Powers that are more familiar with nightlife. Familiar to who? The powers are familiar with nightlife? What is nightlife? The author has gone off on an info dump about magic and magical inheritance and how that works. Great, this is the perfect place for that. And of course the light fae, the fae that are most common in the South, I guess the good guy places, have, you know, healing abilities and blah blah blah, and they're crafters and they're healers and they're gentle and they can affect your mood and make you happy. And of course the dark fae obviously have evil powers. But we're just talking about how, like, power is inherited in sort of a roundabout way. You don't get the exact power of your parent, but you get a related power. So, like, if your mom's a healer, you might be able to grow plants because it's still, like, life-giving powers. So it makes me wonder if, like, selective breeding essentially has bred out the dark fae and made them go over there. And, like, all of the light fae, they're the same fae, is what I'm saying. Is that they're the same people, but we've decided that the ones who have the good powers that we like are light fae, and we've decided that the ones that have the powers we don't like are dark fae. But actually they're the same species. I don't know, that's my working theory right now. These two winged men have just sat down in this clearing and explained magical bloodlines to Amaris for 2 pages. Also, are we ever going to find out whether the two Reavers were seeing something else, or whether they were actually seeing 2 hot guys with wings and trying to attack them? I am noticing more typos as we get into sort of the late middle of the book. I can understand that. It is exhausting. It is exhausting to go through your own book looking for typos. This book is so big and so dense and so many words that I'm kind of not surprised that by the time that she's gotten to the late middle that she's starting to notice fewer and fewer typos. But it went from, like, 1 maybe every other chapter to multiple typos in a chapter. Still, definitely not the worst. Still willing to give her some slack because, again, I know how difficult it is, especially in a book this size. But that's something for all of us to learn from, be aware of, be careful about in your own books. You can become exhausted when you're, you know, really in the meaty middle of your book, and stop noticing your typos as well. Amaris is so weird. She takes them back to her camp, which the guys have left, and she's happy that they're gone because she doesn't want to deal with the problems that she made. Classic avoidant tendencies. Anyway, she asks the 2 bird guides a question, and then she turns around and starts lighting the fire. Like, rude. Make eye contact. You just asked him a question, and then you turn around and are ignoring him. Also, we still have zero description of what either of these people are wearing, so I am still really struggling not to just picture them naked. Like, what are they wearing? I have no basis for what the clothing of dark fae would look like. And this author describes everything. Although they have weapons. So, like, nude, but, like, wearing sword belts and stuff. Again, she says they owed her answers. Why did they owe you anything? They just saved your stupid life, you dumb twit. This girl is so entitled. Ah, yes, I was correct. Yeah, we look different to other people. You're the only one who sees us the way we are. Which she could have figured out if she had any, you know, thoughts in her tiny little head.
Anybody home? Hey, think would fly.
She just refuses to blame herself for anything. She's like sitting by the fire being like, gosh, I miss my friends. They'll never forgive me. These stupid winged guys are the reason that I'm in this situation. Like, without them, I never would have had to do that. You didn't have to do anything. You chose. You chose. Now, granted, you stupidly don't know how to use your powers. But you could have kept everybody there in the clearing, talked it out, figured out the situation. Instead, you made your friends leave.
You're just a lying little bitch who ruins things.
This keeps happening to these characters, and this is a complaint you often hear where characters have no agency. Things just keep happening to them. Now, these characters aren't the worst. They do make some decisions for themselves. She, for some reason, confusing decisions, but hey, decisions. She chose to ride off with the Reaver, and she wanted to be trained. Again, we don't know why, but at least she made those decisions. Very recently, Nox has made her very first ever decision in deciding to go hunt down the girl that she has a one-sided crush on. But other than that, things just happen to these girls, and they just spend so much time like gaping in amazement at the things that happened. They spend a lot of time being like, how could I have predicted this turn of events? This changes everything. Thinking about how my life was going to be one way, but now it's another way. And it's just like, it highlights and shoves in your face any time that these girls are just going along where the plot needs them to, when we wouldn't have even really noticed it if we didn't have them just going on and on about how this changes everything, this thing that I couldn't control. So the guys say that 20 years ago, this weird situation started happening where every time they left their homeland, every time they went to the south, their appearance to everyone else changed, and they look like monsters. Why did they keep coming here? I don't know. But they look like monsters to everyone else.
This night has been cursed.
Every time they cross the border into Fairhold, it happens. And then it says, their words were illogical. Her brows collected as her lower lip rose in disbelief. What the heck? Lower lip rose in disbelief? I know when I'm disbelieving, I'm just like, yes, I don't believe you. Okay. She says, when you cross the border, you look like monsters? And then Gabrielle corrected, no, when we cross the border, we are perceived as monsters. Please explain what the difference is in this situation between looking like monsters and being perceived as monsters. All right, I returned. It's a little while later. I stopped, I had lunch. I did really anything to keep from getting back to reading this, but unfortunately, it was sitting here waiting for me. Oh, I thought of another heroine who falls into this same issue. It would also be, oh, what was her name? The main character from the Cyborg Tinkerer. Well, you know who I'm talking about. She was also obnoxious. She could do whatever she wanted and not get punished for it, and then if something went wrong, she just blamed everyone else. She's mad. She wants to know why they crossed the border, not because, like, why do you do it if it makes everyone think that you're monsters. She's mad why they had crossed the border to come inconvenience her personally. Yeah, now she's gonna victim blame them. She's very uncharitable in her thoughts. She's like, the fact that they are being murdered when they come over to this part of the world because they look like monsters, she's like, well, you must not be very good warriors then if you're getting killed left, right, and center. Like, these people are telling you they have some sort of weird curse on them, and you're like, well, it's your fault, actually. You should just fight off anybody who wants to kill you.
Help. Police. Murder.
And of course, our main character, we must not forget, is very special. So she asks how often other people have realized that they were not demons, how many people have perceived them, and he's like, no one else has ever perceived us. It also begs the question, because, Gadriel here is like, we used to like have good relations, like we used to deal with the other kingdoms, but then this curse happened and now it's really difficult. And it's like, okay, yeah, you can't go into the other kingdoms, but if the other kingdoms come to you, you could just explain to them, hey, there's this weird curse happening. When we go across your border, we look like monsters. Please don't kill us. You can even go to the border and like step across and be like, monster, not monster, monster, not monster. Like, conversations would solve a lot of your problems. So these two are like, wow, we've actually found somebody who can see us, who can understand us when we're in this area, so we're going to want you to come with us so that you can essentially act as translator. And of course she's like, no, because that would inconvenience me personally, and I'm the most important person here. However, it still doesn't answer the question of why they didn't just explain to any of their allies what was going on. Did the allies never visit them? In their nation, did they only go out? Did ambassadors never come? Did they never get trade from the other lands? Why were they never able to explain this until this moment? And their only option was to sneak around in the southern lands looking like demons and hoping nobody killed them. What about letters? Could they send letters? Or when they write a letter and they send it out, as soon as it crosses the border, does their handwriting turn into, like, demon letters or something? Like, what? Honestly, I'm tempted to give this the bingo square, bad guys have terrible plans, because there aren't really bad guys in this. There's bad people, but, like, there's no villain that I've encountered as of yet. So it's hard for the villain to have a terrible plan if there isn't one. But this whole situation is just, like, the dumbest, most easily solved thing I've ever heard. Unless they're gonna come up with some explanations. I suppose maybe they'll explain it. They figure out that she's a Reaver, and they're thrilled because actually one of their best friends is a Reaver. It's Ash's dad. So even better, things are just working out, and of course she's gonna still be mad about it. The winged people tell her that Ash's dad is named Alil, and Amaris realizes that she never asked Ash his father's name. Why put that in? Why have that be a thing? Like, it feels like the author going, literally on the page as she's writing, going, oh shoot, I never gave him a name. Well, I'll just say that Amaris never asked. When you don't need to have that. Perhaps I can help you, she started. They seemed to glitter at her words. Did they just turn into sparkly vampires real fast here?
This is what I am.
Even though they've gotten all this information, she's found out that they are friends to her people, she's like, nope, I'm on a different mission, I refuse to help you. The author is attempting banter, and it is painful. This is the reason she doesn't write a lot of dialogue. She's not very good at it. So there's some annoying political stuff going on. North-south against each other. Bird guys from the north, when they come south, they turn into demons. The southern queen is killing northerners for no reason, except for now we found out that there's a reason. It's probably because they look like demons when they come to the south. So they're like, you're already going to go talk to this queen. Talk to her and explain the situation, and if she won't listen to you, use your magical talkie powers on her, which I'm pretty sure is what the Reavers were already planning for her to do. And of course, they've never seen any power like Amaris's. She's just so special.
You're the most important, most talented, most interesting, and most extraordinary person in the universe.
This is the second time in this chapter that we're told that Gadriel's a general, and so he's used to being obeyed. In basically exactly the same way. We've got the whole classic, he's a general who's used to being obeyed, and she's a sassy girl who won't do as he says. And of course, she and the general are having a moment. She turns to leave. He grabs her arm. Suddenly, they're very close to each other. He's like, I didn't ask your name. You saved us, and I don't even know your name. You saved her, first, so. She tells him her name is Amaris, and he's like, of course it is, which probably means that it means something cool in his language as well. And you could put a chapter break right here if you wanted to, because then she's just making her way for town, so this would have been a perfect spot. So she gets to the bar where she recognizes the boys' horses, and we're like, ooh, she could potentially reunite with Knox, but we know she's not gonna. It's too soon in the book for that. And the moment she reaches the bar, her two friends come flying out the door with shouts, chasing after them. They've definitely done something to piss off everyone at the bar, and they're fleeing. So she just turns her horse around and they all flee. She's like, why was everybody mad at you? And he's like, I think I avoided being eaten by a witch, and that's the whole explanation. Everybody keeps calling her a witch, and she's really mad about it. But, like, are magic users in their world called witches? Like, we've understood through being told that some humans even have magic, but they're like freaked out by her. And her type of magic is just like the wrong type. I don't know. It's not very clear, except for that everybody wants to call her a witch now that they found out what power she has. So they go like all the way around to the other end of the city where they probably will not have been heard of, and they stop at an inn. And while they're doing it, like the one time in her life, this author glosses over something smartly. It is Amaris telling the boys about her powers and her history with her powers and everything, and how she was told to hide them until literally this very moment where she's given an assignment which will involve her using her powers. They don't touch on how that is such a terrible, terrible plan, but whatever. I'm glad that the author finally decided to gloss over something that we didn't need to hear about in great detail again. But now they are at the inn, there are 2 rooms left, and they're going to give Malik, who is injured, his own room, so that means that Ash and Amaris will have to share a room. There's probably only 1 bed. You know the drill. Once again, she's just feeling sorry for herself, even though everything is her fault. She goes to the room, wearing only a towel, and Ash is still awake and ready to, like, talk to her and maybe have it out, and instead she's like, I will replace this dagger of betrayal with something good. Another typo, actually, it's 4 spaces in a row. I don't know if there had been a word there or what, but... Oh, you want to talk about unhealthy, and it turns out she was actually using her powers on him to make him have sex with her. Although I don't really know how, because she didn't even really talk to him. She just came in wearing a towel, and he was like, let's go. So, like, maybe she doesn't even need to use it verbally. And of course, Ash is best boy, too good for this world, too pure, because he realizes what she was doing, and he's like, okay, we're not gonna have sex. He's gonna, like, make her sit and have a conversation. He has to be super apologetic and be like, of course I care about you, poor baby. You know, you felt so abandoned, you didn't have to do this. Just, even though it's her fault. It is her fault.
You ruined everything, you stupid bitch.
And he's forgiving her again for using her power on him to make him have sex with her. Yeah, he's just totally like, I've wanted to see you naked for years. It's fine that you tried to seduce me. So basically, she almost sexually assaulted him using magic, and he's supposed to make her feel better about it afterward. And laugh it off, and ho ho ho, I wanted to see you naked for years. Oh, ho ho ho, ha ha ha. And she gets to have a cuddle while she cries, and we never have to interrogate the fact that she was trying to sexually assault her friend. And then they just fall asleep, spooning, because he is a perfect angel man. But also, he is not one of her possible lovers, because any possible lover of hers has to be, like, aggressive and scary. And when she wakes up and sees him there, we still get a description of how ridiculously attractive he is, but she's like, nope, I love him like a brother. My brother who I tried to sexually assault last night. So apparently, he's telling this to, oh my gosh, I'm almost out of memory card again. These 30-page chapters are so killer. I don't think I can quite get to the end of the chapter before my memory card runs out. So I'm gonna have to friggin' empty it for like 3 minutes worth of footage. Alright, had to empty my whole memory card. I don't even remember what I was talking about, but let's just assume that our main character was being a jerk. Oh sure, she'll apologize to Malik, and of course he immediately forgives her, because heaven forbid our special, special girl experience any adversity. Of course, she can't do this apology without finding a way to feel sorry for herself. He's like, well, I guess that's what I get for being human, you know, because he's super susceptible to her magic. And then she thinks about how she's going to live longer than him and how she's going to have to suffer through the deaths of all her friends. And maybe it would be better if she was just an ordinary human. Ugh, life is such a burden when you're so special. And then Ash comes downstairs and she, like, checks his face to see if there's any sign that, like, the night before has changed their relationship. And of course it hasn't. Of course it hasn't. Did you think it would? What book are you reading? The men exchanged elbows, allowing her to continue. Now, I'm pretty sure this means they, like, elbowed each other, like, heh heh heh. But it sounds like they took off their elbows and traded. His eyebrows slowly lifted as he processed the information in real time. Well, what other time is he supposed to process it in? So she tells them the conversation she had. She tells them that she had to tell the Flappy Boys, yes, I'm going to keep calling them that, about their mission, and it says they weren't thrilled that she'd made the decision without them, but they saw the wisdom in her choice. Okay, this girl, Piper CJ, knows nothing about horses. She has done a smidge more research than most fantasy writers, but she doesn't know what she's talking about. Even the horses seem to have enjoyed their night in the stables with fresh straw, that's fine, and a bag of oats mounted on the walls of their stalls. A bag of oats. Oats goes in a bucket. You mean a bag of hay? Because a lot of times hay can be fed in sort of a net that hangs in the stall, which you could potentially call a bag of hay. But oats in a bag. Now you might think maybe she's talking about a feed bag, you know, the kind that hang on the horse's face, except for it specifically says it was hanging on the wall. So Piper CJ, I'm afraid you get the Julian stamp of doesn't know shit about horses, and I can tell. And with that evidence that she has no idea about horses, we are going to close out this chapter. Oh my gosh, these chapters are so long. Okay, the next one is like 4 pages? What? Piper! I'm not mad because I only have to read 4 pages next time. I'm just disappointed. Me and my dorky hair are back. It's at that unfortunate length where it's just like, nothing can be done with it, but my phone needs to charge. Giorgio was here, she left me. And I will spend that time reading the next chapter because it's really short. It's like perfect. But let's get to chapter 18. Yes, I am wearing this sweater again. We are in the time of sweaters. You're gonna be seeing a lot of the same freaking sweater. We are back with Knox, or at least with Millicent? Apparently Millicent is a little bit steampunk because she's wearing one of those tiny little top hats. We're with Emily, the jilted, red-haired girl. This makes it sound like Emily is naked. The mistress is like glaring at her. Millicent raked her eyes over the girl before her, from her strawberry hair down every freckled inch of her curves, which makes it sound like she's just sitting there in the nude. Millicent is just going on in some sort of blah 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 boring villain monologue. This author likes to use overpowering smells when a character is evil. Like all of her characters or her main characters have a smell, yes.
Which I later learned was a marketing ploy so that she could sell candles with the scents of all her characters. That's smart, I really should get into that.
But if the smell is overpowering, like the smell of lemon on the priest guy and the smell of vanilla on Millicent here, if the smell is overpowering, that means the character is evil. And I'm fine with it, actually, as a concept. The only problem is that, of course, it's over-described, and we are just hit over the head with the club of the fact that these characters have a certain overpowering smell. The madam always wears gloves, apparently, and she's finally taken one off to reveal that she has, like, creepy lizard hands, or amphibian hands. They're like scaly and slithery and end in razor-sharp talons, which I don't know how that works with the gloves. How does she not just like pierce the gloves? Typo. We are clocking a lot more typos in the middle of this book. And I know I'm pointing them out, but it's very likely that I have a similar amount of typos in my own book. And yes, I hired a professional editor and went through it many times myself. I am sympathetic. I understand how difficult it is. So the mistress is just going on and on about love and how she controls love and she offers synthetic love and blah 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 villain speech. All while menacing the Emily character who is cowering in a chair. Millicent is also some kind of monster that drains people because she's draining all the life out of the Emily character. And she's dead. She's dead. Apparently Millicent, like, ages people to death when she touches you with her weird lizard hands.
I got these evil hand issues.
And then she, like, vows to do whatever it takes to get Knox back, and that's the end of the chapter. The next chapter is a Knox chapter, but it's a little bit long for me right now. I might do it later tonight. We'll find out. We'll see how I feel about that. But, I just wanted to do a quick little chapter while my phone charged, because I have other chores I need to do first before I read more shitty book. Thanks for tuning in. I hope we've learned something very important, and that is that Millicent has lizard hands that turn people old.
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
Louisa.
Unicorn Jenny, Celia, Neon, Taya, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, My 96, Afra, Melissa, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, Sarah, and Hayden Glade.